So today we're going to try to focus on a little bit the purpose of partnering, but a little bit more of a deep-rooted sense to be able to try to focus on trying to remove bottlenecks. Bottlenecks is the focus for partnering today. So stay to the end to find out how we are going to try to bring it together, as well as like a conceptual, game show style for business games. Business type of game show games that are business style. Yeah, stay to the end to find out. Welcome to the news. Yeah, and a little bit of a bonus at the end as well. Bonus prize. Yeah. So anyways, welcome to the news. So just getting into it, we're just talking about bottlenecks, like the purpose of partnering based upon bottlenecks. So it's not really about the advantage. It's not really about trying to get to the end goal of like great success, grand success, and fantastic endings with like confetti and fantastical like balloons and items that are similar to confetti falling from the air to be able to try to bring praise and fantastical, unique, interesting, fun, and interesting ceremonious endings that are fantastical and glorious. It is more so about removing the bottlenecks. It is more so about not losing if possible. It is not more so about not losing time in the process of trying to focus on how to partner, when to partner, why to partner, and in a certain respect trying to be able to find different people that have capabilities that have already removed significant bottlenecks, focusing on bottlenecks and how to try to remove bottlenecks by leveraging partnerships, in essence, focusing on the powers of other people based on the bottlenecks which they have withdrawn in certain niches that correspond to other avenues of other markets that exist that are highly lucrative or significantly valuable or conceptually have conceptual potential behind them necessarily, and people have found unique avenues, have dug unique holes which are similar to industries specifically that have significant potential and or have proven to be significantly either lucrative or have had a back end to them that has a high-end potential, meaning there's just a lot of nutrition behind it. There's a lot of like nutrients and vitality in that industry in terms of potential for growth and room to find new avenues to try to expand. So in essence, what we're referring to is bottlenecks in this instance. So like for an example, one sort of example recently come across is a man named Pace Morby. Pace Morby is well known in the real estate industry in the United States, for example, and one interesting element about him is that he has removed certain bottlenecks in terms of the banking industry. So in terms of real estate, there's a creative financing realm and a creative financing avenue to be able to go about certain things, and like certain typical banking in general has a certain criteria, it has a certain avenue, it has a certain flow, and in a massive scale in the mainstream of banking, certain banks will only fund specific deals, certain deals will only give loans to certain deals to follow through with and carry out specific deals that more or less have an ability to only cater to like certain cookie cutter proven like sort of processes that are, in other words, processes that they have decided that they will deal with, whereas there's still opportunity that revolve around the banks that they sort of let go, that they turn down, and in mainstream sense, and by mainstream, I mean they have garnered all the attention. They've spent millions and billions of dollars to be able to garner attention, and so everybody only knows about these large mainstream banks and organizations, for example. But this has to do with removing bottlenecks in specific industries and finding the right people to partner with to be able to still try to access significant markets around the world in private and public senses. But typically this is regarding the private markets, and in this instance we're talking about real estate, and in this instance we're also talking about being able to remove the bottlenecks. So like he's a private lender, Pace Morby is a private lender, and at the same time he has like a sort of a personality that is for revolving around creative lending, but at the same time it relates to deals that most people wouldn't do, and deals that are a certain strategy that most people wouldn't make, because it just, in my opinion, corresponds to empathy and sort of trying to be considerate of people in general, being considerate of people in the way that people semi-operate, and then trying to develop equity deals and equity partnerships alongside of people. And there's also speed involved, and this corresponds to deal making, and deal making in sort of like a TV show, like a game show style making process style of making deals, like in a bulk way, and like a, not like the show Shark Tank, for example, but like it's a methodology that just is like In other words, Pace Morby uses something he calls the gator method, and the gator method has to do with taking a bite out of different types of deals that correspond to opportunity, just speaking to opportunity, and then speaking to like getting equity out of conceptual opportunity that, for example, banks ignore. That, for example, banks ignore. That, for example, typical mainstream banks ignore. So, for example, today, Pace Morby, for example, is someone who is able to take the bottlenecks out of a specific industry and out of a specific typical mainstream industry known as banking. And then the more niche industry within that industry of banking corresponds to real estate. So Pace Morby, for example, is someone who's carved out a niche in the real estate side of the banking industry, and he's removed the bottlenecks for lending and for lenders for certain specific types of deals to just like a gator, like an alligator, like a crocodile, or like an alligator, to be able to take bites out of all kinds of opportunity that typical banks leave just on the wayside. Basically, banks just want safety. They don't ever partner with people necessarily. They don't partner on equity necessarily. Banks just want something that's safe, the safest avenue that they can possibly travel so that they can continue down a longer path, down a longer road. And they don't do any equity sharing. They don't do any connecting with people, which is kind of what equity sharing is about, is fundamental connection with people. So that's where corresponding to removing bottlenecks comes through. And the essence of partnering based upon removing bottlenecks corresponds to this example of Pace Morby, because it's an essence of creative financing and leveraging creative financing to be able to remove bottlenecks, in essence, by standing as the bank, but a different type of bank that nobody else typically in the banking industry wants to be. And so that corresponds to also equity connection and equity sharing. And that's what Pace Morby sort of specializes in. And just like an alligator, you can take bites out of different opportunity that already is either laying dead, it's laying useless, it's laying lifeless, and a gator comes along and takes a chunk out of it to be able to keep its life going and to stay healthy and to stay, to keep eating nutrition. And so basically, that's the purpose of partnering in a larger, in a more deep sense, in a more deep methodical sense, is to partner with people that have unique skills and remove the bottlenecks from specific industries that typically are known in the mainstream to have certain niches or nooks or personalities or cultures carved out within certain avenues of society. And in this instance, Pace Morby has withdrawn the bottlenecks in the banking industry for real estate folks and people to come to him as a bank to be able to fund interesting, creative, private lending, private market real estate deals, to be able to develop a connection with a unique connection, a unique person, a unique personality, through the ability to be able to partner with someone who specifically has removed the bottlenecks. It's not like he's trying to promise glory. It is as though he has removed the bottlenecks, which typically are annoying, which cause people to not do business, and bottlenecks are the things that keep people from doing deals, doing business in life in general. Bottlenecks are the issue and the enemy, not trying to chase glory. It's trying to remove bottlenecks, and people that can remove bottlenecks are the ones to try to get to the other side. Basically, you can't cross a bridge if half of the bridge is missing, for example. So people such as bottleneck removers are something of like a symbol for being the completion of a certain aspect of a bridge that's missing, so to speak, to be able to actually leverage a bridge to be able to develop a new avenue for travel and business growth. In essence. So this is the type of game show that we're talking about trying to leverage as well, is like developing game shows with partnering for different types of bottleneck removers, trying to find different types of bottleneck removers, not necessarily through interviewing, but doing something. And this brings us to the little prize at the end of the show today, which corresponds to a probability calculator in the options market. There's something called a probability calculator in the options market. A probability calculator in the options market, meaning the trading equities market, where in an ideal sense you can use an options trading probability calculator to calculate probability before making an options trade, to try to get to something of like a 90+% sort of win potential rate on a specific options trade. For example, similar to trying to place a bet at the end of a football game that's about to end, and you already know the score, and so there's a 90% chance that you're going to bet on the team close to when the game is about to end, and when there's a 90% chance that that game is about to end in the favor of the bet that you're making. That's the hope of the goal of an options calculator, in essence. So we're combining the essence of an options calculator as well as removing bottlenecks to be able to try to develop unique game shows where, in essence, we try to find people who are able to remove bottlenecks, more or less remove bottlenecks, and they have proven track records because they've removed a lot of bottlenecks and they've carved out an industry similar to Pace Morby in the real estate industry by developing and leveraging creative financing, so that in essence we interview and we find people to be able to connect the dots so that the probability goes up to the essence of like 90+% and deals are able to flow. We're able to try to find people that are bottleneck removers. So once we connect with these bottleneck removers, we then have them sit there and just do deals on the phone and do deals live because they're just able to talk to people, and we're actually just trying to capture the essence of flow. We're trying to capture the essence of the flow because they've removed the bottlenecks, so we're just watching the flow basically between these people that are bottleneck removers and their high options probability calculator of things working out, because they've tried to remove 90% of the blockage typically in that industry, and they've caused a 90% opening for the avenue for people to cross that bridge to do deals through a certain niche process that corresponds to removing the bottlenecks and then therefore creating 90% more flow. And so we want to capture that on film. We want to capture that on film by connecting with more bottleneck removers and then finding the essence of their deal making flow and watching them on doing live calls with people where they're just constantly pushing through their flow. They're making their deals because they're pushing through their flow, because they've removed the bottlenecks and they've made things nice and easy because they're empathetic people. These are empathetic people that are trying to cause flow. They're trying to cause deals because they're trying to cause flow because they've focused on removing the bottlenecks, and that therefore makes them good partners and developing good partnerships and solid depictions of solid partnerships through good ideations of good people and good concepts that correspond to good, in essence, flow that's good for society and good for the development of global philanthropy energy and good for the essence of developing, more so in the future, the global good deeds economy. And so that's about all for now. Thanks again. Oh yeah, the specific website for the options calculator is Lee Lowell. Lee is his first name, and his last name is Lowell. Find him on YouTube to get a free options calculator. Or you can also probably search online for that. An options trading calculator to try to increase the probability in selling options. And that's about all for now. Let's also remember to push for world peace. Let's push for world peace every single day. Let's push for world peace in the world every single day. Let's remember to do that, and let's also remember to try to clear the animal shelters. Let's also remember to clear the animal shelters every single day, because we can foster all the shelter animals in the world, we can adopt all the shelter animals in the world, we can rescue all the shelter animals in the world, and we can also, most importantly, hire the shelter animals as healers throughout our communities, to be able to hire the shelter animals as therapeutic creatures throughout our communities, because they work for free, and we can clear the animal shelters so that they can help us to be better humans and cause more therapeutic connection with humans and improve humanity, so that we can harmonize better across all humanity by clearing the animal shelters and continuing to harmonize also with animals by clearing the animal shelters, by hiring the shelter animals as healers throughout our communities in the short and long term. So let's clear the animal shelters, and let's also remember to push for world peace. We must push for world peace every single day. Every single day, let's push for world peace to make our world harmonize better every single day, every single day, every single day. Push for world peace. And that's all for now. Thanks again. Dinky Tech and Change for Game Studios. Bye. Peace. Bye. We're starting to do a little sound. We're trying to do some live sound stuff on Facebook. We'll keep you posted. All right, bye on that. All right, bye.